everybody, I'm Sal for Sal Says What. I'm here on location at Funny Books Comics and Stuff, which you may have seen from some of my older videos, because this is my comic book store. I'm going to leave a note in the description box down below for even more information for you to find out about Funny Books Comics and Stuff in Lake Hiawatha, New Jersey. There comes a time in a young man's life when somebody hands you a copy of Dark Knight Returns. Maybe it's a parent or a trusted friend or an older sibling. In my case, it was my comic book retailer. I was 14 at the time, and I remember he told me that I was old enough, at last, to own it. I purchased the trade, took it home, and read it. It took me a couple hours, and what I didn't realize at the time was I had very limited experience with Frank Miller. Unbeknownst to me, he wrote the Spawn Batman crossover, which I thought was super rad back in the day. So yeah, that was my first Frank Miller book. But this was so unbelievably unlike anything I'd seen before. Actually, scratch that. It was new, yet familiar. I knew the imagery, but I never heard this story before. This would be the book that I'd hold as the gold standard of Batman comics. Of comics in general. Of epics in general. And everyone whom I shared this book with was equally changed. Alright, maybe not changed, but at least they thought it was awesome. Even similarly weighted and Jersey-centric fanboy Kevin Smith has a kind of religious experience with this comic. So when DC started doing their direct-to-DVD movie initiatives, I anticipated with each announcement an adaptation of The Dark Knight Returns. Then finally, one day, about a year ago or so, it happened. Bruce Timm was going to leave his executive role, and they were going to break it into 2 whole movies and appropriately give the material the space that it deserved. What a fantastic idea! The Dark Knight Returns movie adaptation is weird. I say it's weird because it's great, but it isn't great. It's faithful, yet insulting. The creative teams made such a weird, questionable decision about what to keep, what to drop, what to add, but I'll get to that in a second. The opening scene of old Bruce Wayne's race car sequence is rendered in the best CG 1995 had to offer, which is weird because they had the budget to do an actual animated car chase. And then it was in this sequence that it was revealed that Batman's running monologue throughout the text, the source of some of the greatest lines of this book, would not be included in this adaptation. And I kind of both understand, but don't understand the decision. See, running monologues a la noir films are tricky and hokey. We've seen 2 Frank Miller live-action movie examples of how it works properly with Sin City, and how it does not work in The Spirit. And if DC didn't want to take that gamble on the narrative device, I totally get it. Except they just did a Frank Miller adaptation of Year One a year prior, and had all the terrible running thoughts throughout the whole movie. And with one of the worst Batman voice actors ever woodenly portrayed by Ben McKenzie, it was insufferably bad. But the narration throughout Dark Knight Returns is, I think, essential to how the comic book works best. They kept the Greek chorus of the bad 80s TV anchors, they kept the Nazi chick, they even kept Reagan. But some of the best lines in the Batman mythology are flat out dropped. It's bizarre. I'm also really disappointed with RoboCop Peter Weller's stiff, lifeless performance. I see the motivation of finding a voice that captures a badass in his twilight years who's seen and done everything, but those moments where he needs to come alive again are just lost. The Rooseveltian inspiring moment in The Dump, when Batman declares his way is the law, is just disheartening. I'll come right out and say it. Peter Weller doesn't have the chops that Kevin Conroy has. And since Conroy has aged with the character and is never above portraying him in the last 20 years of his career, this is a big, bitter miss. Other voice work is wonderful, though, with Ariel Winter as the shining star perfectly portraying Carrie Kelly, Mark Valley as the windbag Superman, and I don't even mind Michael Emerson's Paul Lynde Joker voice. It was a lot of fun, and it added something to the character, I think. Action sequences are cool, but lacking any artistic flair. Key scenes either work great or fall flat, and the direction's a little too by the numbers for my tastes. I've said on numerous occasions before that comics are not movies, and don't naturally translate to movies. Would there ever be a perfect adaptation of Dark Knight Returns? Probably not. As a movie on its own, I'm not even sure who besides fans of the book would enjoy it cold, and fans of the book might feel similar to how I did about the changes, so I'm not entirely sure who this movie is for, considering the changes that were made. Overall, though, the movie gets a pass from me. It's just baffling the random decisions to remove or flat out change or add when they took the time and effort to recreate key moments and spread the material across 2 features. The Dark Knight Returns is available on DVD, Blu-ray, and digital download. You can get it pretty cheap online at this point if you want to give it a look. And I'd say it's probably worth one. Question to you guys is, what's your favorite moment from The Dark Knight Returns? Either movie or comic, but probably the comic. Mine is a toss-up between either Batman on horseback or that final punch in the Batman-Superman fight. There are a ton more, and there are more as I get older, but those really stick out for me. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for watching and enjoying this On Location episode with me. You can click the like button or subscribe to the channel. You can click that video right over there for the last episode that we did, and stop on by littlehouseonline.com for even more stuff that we do. You can also stop on by funnyrama.com to check out even more information about this great retailer.